Hey everyone, before we get to today's Shea Station podcast, I got to tell you about today's sponsor, which is Lightbox. Guys, the Mets showed up for us in LA, and I think you got to show up for your mom or a loved one this year, and Lightbox can help you do it. If you're looking for gifts this Mother's Day or any special occasion that's coming up, let Lightbox's lab-grown diamonds do all the work. Lightbox makes diamonds you'll love with pricing you'll understand. I know buying a diamond sounds like a very expensive thing to do, but Lightbox makes it easy, and we have a code to help out. This year, skip the socks, skip the flowers, get mom a nice rock on her finger. Use promo code Shea Station 10 for 10% off your purchase. That's Shea Station 10, the number 10, at the link in our description. Go to Lightbox's website right now. Search for the diamond of your choosing, whether it's for your mom, your spouse, even your dog. If your dog deserves a diamond, go to Lightbox to get it done. Code Shea Station 10, and thank you to them for sponsoring today's episode. Now let's get to the action. Hey everyone, welcome back to the next episode of Shea Station. It's episode 158. The Mets just went to LA and took a set off the Dodgers. That was what I thought was going to be the main story, but a lot happened in that final game that we have to talk about, including a Max Scherzer ejection and possible suspension. To add on, the Mets bats came alive, went quiet, then came alive again. It was a very eventful series, but the Mets improved to 5-1 on their West Coast road trip with one more series to go. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jack, aka Jolly. Joining me is Jerry Blevins. Jerry, a lot to talk about today.
Yeah, a lot, but definitely a big series win, man. That was, coming off how they looked in Oakland, even though they swept, they won 2 games by 1. Going into LA, this was a test, and they looked good. They fought, very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it still looks like there's kind of room to grow in some areas, but I mean, we were kind of going into this saying, they might take one and that will be okay, I think, if you go out there to San Francisco and win those games. But instead, they've put themselves in a great spot. They have a chance to have a really winning record on the road trip here if they go into Oracle Park and play well. And they did it without great starting pitching in this series, kind of 3 dud outings. The last one, obviously the most significant because of the length there. But the Mets bats got it done. The Mets bullpen really shined in the last game. Jimmy Yacobonis might be our guy, I think. Lots to love here. The dude, I think. So I think I'm going to dive right into this recap. We'll get it out of the way because there's a lot I got to let you talk about too. All right.
Let's hit it.
Jack's going to hit the music in post. Here I go. The Mets go to Los Angeles after a weird series in Oakland, that series sweep, and they head to play the Dodgers, a much more formidable team, and they're greeted by an old rival, Freddie Freeman, who puts the Dodgers up early in the first with a solo home run off David Peterson, who had one of the weirdest outings I've ever seen from him. We'll get to that in a little bit. Daniel Vogelbach, we've been asking when is he going to get going. He gets going with a 2-run home run off Dustin May in the second. Backup catcher Austin Wynns, Orioles legend, burns Peterson with a 2-run double in the third. The Mets rallied back to take another lead. It was a Lindor hit by pitch and Alonso single that set up a McNeil RBI. And then Beatty joins in on the action to get an RBI single of his own. It's 5-3 Mets. But David Peterson couldn't keep the Dodgers at bay. He didn't walk anybody in the start, which I think is kind of a small victory in of itself, but signs of the devil. 6 innings pitched, 6 earned runs, 6 strikeouts, 3 home runs to boot there. He retired 9 in a row at one point, but then he allowed home runs again to Freddie Freeman and then Max Muncy. So the Dodgers went back in front, and then the Mets jumped ahead yet again. The 6th lead change of the game to that point. Nido, Nimmo, and Marte single to load the bases. Lindor and Alonso get the RBIs to put the Mets ahead 8-6. Brooks Raley came up big in relief. He got 5 outs in this one, and Adam Ottavino pitches a 1-2-3 ninth for his 2nd save of the year. It was a nail-biter, but 3 hit games from Nimmo, Alonso, and McNeil helped the Mets win this one 8-6. Game 2 was not as eventful at all. The Dodgers got the lead early off Tyler McGill, and then Clayton Kershaw shut the Mets down like he always does. He still has never lost to the Mets in his illustrious career. Scherzer. This night was no different. 7 shutout innings, 9 strikeouts on 105 pitches. He was vintage for his 200th win. Yeah, kind of a quiet one from the Mets side of things. They lose this one 5-0. Setting the stage for a very eventful Game 3. Max Scherzer loaded the bases in the first inning, got out of it after only getting 1 out to begin with. But then, as we're starting to get into this Scherzer outing, it's cut short because he is ejected after the 3rd inning for alleged illegal use of foreign substances, which we will definitely expand and analyze on after the recap. The Dodgers capitalized on this and brought home a run on a sacrifice fly off Jimmy Yacobonis. Yacobonis was great. He toiled 2 2/3 innings of relief in kind of an impossible spot. A very commendable outing. So hopefully Scherzer gets him that steak dinner that he talked about. Brandon Nimmo came up huge in this game when the Mets looked down and out. He gets a 2-run homer off Noah Syndergaard to put the Mets ahead 2-1. Drew Smith, who has looked great as of late, he tosses a scoreless 7th. Tommy Pham gets the insurance run in the 8th, and it was much needed because D-Rob finally falters. He allows a JD Martinez RBI double. It's a 1-run game yet again. And Mark Canha gets a big hit that he definitely needed as well. A massive 2-run double to get the Mets some more breathing room, and that would be all they needed. Adam Ottavino gets his 3rd save of the year. He allows a solo home run, but the Mets win this one 5-3. Brandon Nimmo goes 5 for 5, 2 hits for Francisco Alvarez, and the Mets bullpen saves the day with 6 innings pitched and 3 earned runs. Mets take the series in LA against all odds.
Good recap. Good series, man. There were so many good performances. Nimmo's 5 for 5 day.
Wow.
Incredible. Watching Mark Canha deliver that 2-run double was huge. Pham continues to impress, and the bullpen, especially after Scherzer's ejection, Yacobonis, Drew Smith, Robertson, and Ottavino all looked good. You want to get into it, or do you want to talk about let's talk a little bit about the series first.
Yeah, we'll keep it a little bit positive at first. I mean, we talked last episode that this bullpen's getting used a lot early on, and it was kind of the same thing for this series. Like the most we got was 6 innings from Peterson. I think you and me both thought that Scherzer was going to go deep in that last start, and he did not. He gave him 3 innings. And I kind of folded over for that. I thought that game was kind of a lost cause, but the Mets, showed a lot of gumption, showed a lot of grit there in getting that win and not counting themselves out. Brandon Nimmo is looking like he's worth every cent of that new contract he got.
He's looked great. I think bats bounced back to Game 1 with the debut of Brett Baty.
Yeah,
working against a really nasty pitcher in Dustin May. Like goes 0-2, fights off some really high 90s, high fastballs, takes a good breaking ball down, fouls off a good breaking ball down, gets another fastball for his RBI single. Just a beautiful at bat. He looks polished. To me, it looks like he's carried over that success he had in spring training and AAA. Very good signs that he's comfortable in his own skin at the plate, which is amazing. And he made some good defensive plays this series. So people have still been kind of hounding on it, and you and I saw it in person in spring. He's going to have some growing pains because he doesn't have the experience yet, but he looked fundamentally much better than we saw him last year.
It's crazy how much of a, no offense, but non-story Brett Baty has become in the aftermath of this series, because I almost forgot that his first game was this first game of the series. He looked great in that at bat. He went down 0-2, I think, multiple times in that first game, but always ended up working a pretty good at bat there. And yeah, like you said, defense is going to have growing pains, but the Mets have honestly gotten pretty good defense out of not only third base, but the entire infield this year. And, I think it answered a lot of questions when we saw him get some at bats against Clayton Kershaw in Game 2 as well. I mean, he's going to get a large amount of playing time going forward, even with Escobar getting the start in Game 2.
Yeah, I mean, Escobar had a history against Kershaw, left on left. It's a great time to get him a breather. I thought that was good. And then him and Escobar, you tweeted out a picture from, I think, Escobar's Instagram of those two sitting together on the plane. Like,
it's everything.
Legit, it is. And it's not a small thing to see Escobar. He's literally taking him under his wing on the plane. He's showing him what it takes to be a big leaguer. He's showing the pride of his work. Like it's not bullshit. It's not like, it's not for the fans. It's not for show. This guy legitimately wants to pass the torch. And that's a beautiful thing about certain types of players excited for the next generation of ball player to come up and make an impact. It's beautiful to watch. It's amazing to see. And Escobar, like, incredible to see him do that.
Yeah, I mean, it takes a lot, you kind of have to swallow your pride a little bit there. And it's kind of another thing that could weigh on a guy like Beatty's mind, being a rookie, that you're taking an established player's job. And if there's cold shoulders in that clubhouse, I think that definitely weighs on you. But, we've heard a lot of great things about the Mets clubhouse over the years, and I think Escobar's the face of it.
Yeah, I think so. I think like, it's just classy. So I love
Yeah.
that. Vogelback's huge home run, like to see
Needed that.
him. He needed it. He needed to drive in some runs, and he did it. He showed some pop. Brooks Raley looked really good in his outing. It was a weird outing, like you said, for Peterson because he looked dominant.
Yeah.
He just had a few, he ran into Freddie Freeman and Max Muncy. Trust me, buddy. I've been there.
Yeah.
Both of those guys hit me well, so I get it. Yeah, but I think he looked good. I thought it's not a pretty line, 6-6.
Mm.
As you said, the mark of the devil. But I really liked what I saw, and I think there's things to build off of, things to grow from.
Yeah, definitely.
But then McGill looked really good again, spreading and limiting damage on big innings. That's what's been hurting the Mets a lot, especially with the young guys, are those huge innings, those blow up innings. And Tyler McGill's done a great job of avoiding those. Toe to toe with, one of the best pitchers of a generation. There was arguments to be made for who's better because him and Kershaw and Scherzer came in at the same time in 08.
Oh, I thought you meant Tyler McGill and Clayton Kershaw.
There was a time when you thought that. You might still. But Kershaw looks amazing. He got his 200th win, so tip of the cap to him. He looked incredible. And then game 3 with Scherzer going down, just like you, I was like, oh, it's over.
Yeah.
But this Mets team showed fight, man. They showed like a willingness to just whatever it is, we're gonna play our game and try to win baseball.
Yeah.
And they did. It was huge.
It was just a really the Mets showed true colors in the series a lot. I mean, McGill, the second start in a row where he allows a big home run in the first. Peterson had ebbs and flows that entire start, but gave him 6 innings. And then, we're kind of two of the biggest optimistic Mets fans in the business. And I think we both kind of conceded that last game and said, okay, we took one. That's about what we expected. And the Mets coming back to win that last game told me everything I need to know, that this team might have the same DNA as the team that won 101 games last year. I mean, that's a huge win. We split in LA last year, and we were really happy with that. To win a series in the Dodgers' home turf, and I don't care that the Dodgers are kind of slumping out of the gate. It's still the Los Angeles Dodgers. They still play great defense. They have bullpen weapons galore, and Clayton Kershaw on the mound. That's a tough thing to do. So I think before we get into the controversies and the injuries and all that came with this series, let's really enjoy those 2 wins that we got.
I think you nailed it. And I've heard it said a lot with this series is like, this is showing signs of who this team was last year. Like there's been some reminders. And I think it's important because every year, no matter if it's the exact same team, every year you've got to figure it out again. It's a brand new ball club with different circumstances. Every season has its own identity. This one has some carryover from last year. Their grit. You're all about the grit. This team fought back. That first game was back and forth like a heavyweight fight. And the Mets showed that they don't bow down. And then in game 3, when Scherzer got ejected, I felt a momentum swing. And the Mets said it's not a momentum swing. They didn't allow it to get them down. They just bounced back. Yacobonis obviously was great in the whole bullpen, but offensively and defensively, that would have been an easy time for them to just kind of like, all right, let's head to San Francisco. They didn't, and that's excellent DNA. That's leadership from the guys in the clubhouse to the front office to Buck Showalter and the coaching staff. Don't allow yourself to get down. That's going to be huge moving forward.
And one last thing I want to mention is that, last series in Oakland, we kind of talked about it was the 2-star show of Alonso and Lindor. They didn't have bad series, but they didn't have the world-breaking series that they did in Oakland. This was a team effort. I mean, Vogie came up big in game 1. Mark Canha had a huge hit in the last game. We had bullpen call-up guys that are pitching massive outs in the middle of that game 3. This was a collective team effort, not to mention, nice performances from Alvarez and Beatty. Alvarez gets the multi-hit. Beatty gets his first RBI. Like, across the board, this Mets team felt like they came together in this LA series, which is why I'm a little annoyed, I guess is the right word for what happened and what's everyone's talking about right now.
Yeah, I get it too because it was a great overall team performance. It shows that like there's two different versions of this Mets team. There's a version where your superstars and Lindor and Alonso carry the team and
Yep.
pick them up, and then there's the version where they don't have to, and top to bottom, these guys battle. You want to dive into the Scherzer stuff? How do you want to approach it? I'll let you
I
kind of lead the way
think
for me.
I'm relinquishing the captain's wheel of
Okay.
the ship and I'm putting you in
Okay.
front and you're going to guide us through this storm. And I want you to first kind of explain MLB's policy with substances and the suspensions, kind of like I've never heard it before because I think there are people listening that might have no clue what is going on and why Scherzer got
Uh,
tossed in the first place.
so I kind of want to go back to why there's sticky substance in the game to begin
Yeah.
with, and it starts with like the simple fact that the baseball itself is flawed. The baseball itself, we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Um, when I first got called up in 2007 from Sacramento, from AAA to the big leagues in Oakland, I grabbed the baseball and I was playing catch for the first time in my first day there, and I had no idea what to do. The ball was slipping. I've never had this problem in my life. And I talked to my other pitchers and I was like, dude, and I was mid panic, like, I
Yeah.
don't know how to play catch with this. And they're like, it's okay. Sunscreen, and then take the rosin, pat it down, rub it on your hands, and then take the ball and rub the ball, and that film will come off of it. Okay. And then the ball feels like the ball. I've never had an issue my entire life of even thinking about what the baseball feels like. I picked it up and I would play catch and throw. Literally never thought about it. Get
Yeah.
to the big leagues and all of a sudden the baseball feels weird. It just was so strange. And so we came up with a solution as an entire industry. All the ball players, the position players are like, look, we want you to be able to command this. So we started sunscreen and rosin. Fast forward to this recent era of high speed cameras and spin rates and the ability to track that, guys found that higher tackiness, higher stickiness creates higher spin. And so they started to cheat. And that's to me is cheating. I completely agree. Um, but just like in other eras of cheating, MLB, without addressing the baseball, opened the door because they know the baseball stinks. So guys were allowed to use sticky stuff, the sunscreen and rosin to get rid of it. Some guys used a little bit of pine tar, but it was like, turn a blind eye because they understand that the game is safer because of it.
Yeah.
And now you give and they've shown it time and time again with steroids, with everything, with the video. You give a player an inch, they're going to take a mile, and they started to cheat. And MLB, because they didn't address the problem, now they have to be, oh, we're going to do this. Okay. You're still allowed. So flash forward to we're back. Okay, we're
Mm.
here. They've
Yep.
started cracking down and checking. The checks are like, okay, bullshit. Remember Pineda with the pine tar on
Right.
his
Right.
neck, all that stuff. You're allowed to use rosin. You're allowed to have sunscreen on. You're allowed to have sweat. So guys, to get rid of the ball, to make the ball feel normal, would take sweat and rub the ball. It would take off the dryness and give it a little bit of moisture so it feels tacky. And then the rosin would get rid of that sweat on your hand. So the ball would feel normal. Then the sweat on your hand would feel tacky when you would get the rosin. So it's a good combination. Scherzer gets told that he needs a new glove because after, you can't just go out with a brand new glove because it's a
Right.
brick. It's the
Right.
ball's going to jump out. You can't squeeze it. So it's build up. So you throw sunscreen and rosin on both your hands. You put your hand back in your glove, and then where the palm is, you're going to get some buildup, and it's going to be like a residue sometimes, but it's not like a residue where you can go and put it on your fingers and you're going to get better spin. It's just not. It's just like a leftover tape residue. It's inconsistent. Just it's not a cheating mechanism. But they didn't like it, so he got a new glove. He washed his hands, and if you're washing your hands with soap and water, rosin's not coming off.
Right.
It's just not going to happen. So you have to use alcohol, and you rub the rubbing alcohol takes red hot off. It takes tape residue off. It takes pre-wrap. They have stuff called tape remover that you can wash with your hands. It's blue. It's the same concept. It's a alcohol based, and it takes it off. So Scherzer does this now. Somebody says that, again, this is, I don't know if this is true, but if you mix alcohol with rosin, it becomes even stickier than it's supposed to be. That seems weird because it takes it off. So I don't know. That could be it. And so they didn't like what they saw. They warned him. He came back. They did it again, going out for the fourth inning. Phil Cuzzy's the guy, and he tosses him. And he's gonna get 10-game suspension. There's no he can appeal it. It is what it is. It's completely subjective. They're trained to feel what's sticky and what's not sticky. When you use a regular legal substance like rosin, you use it in a way that's legal, but eventually it builds up to be illegal. It sucks that this is happening. And so that's where we are. That's why Scherzer's so mad, because he says, I didn't do anything that I'm not allowed to do. This is the problem that we had with this in the first place. And so Scherzer's upset. They're saying we have proof that you did it illegally with the alcohol. He's like, no, I used it to clean my hands and then reapplied the rosin. Like, it's just such bullshit. Like, we're here, you're penalizing a guy because you haven't fixed the baseball. If you fix the baseball, nobody would have any excuse to have any type of stickiness on their hand, on their glove. It's just an exhausting process where they're now upset about Scherzer and the rules and the way it's interpreted, and you're trained to find the difference. Shut up. You're trained, you take the tackiness and this is what it feels like here. Every pitcher, it's different. The humidity levels in different stadiums are different. The temperature, night, day, it all feels different. It all has different, reactions on your hands. It's designed to keep the sweat from your hands and to get rid of the baseball's tackiness. So I do think that sticky stuff is cheating. I really do. The spider tack, I hated it in the game. I'm glad that they're finally cracking down on that stuff. But you can't have this open interpretation, because right off the bat, all the spin rates went down. You can calculate it. And then they all came back up. So everybody's using something again, and it's probably sunscreen and rosin. But why? How do you get to target Max Scherzer? Why is Phil Cuzzy the only umpire that's done it? And only 3 guys have been caught? 3 random selections? It's so subjective. That's the problem that I have with it. That's the problem that Max Scherzer has with it. That's the problem that the Players Association had with it when they proposed these changes. Address the real problem of the baseball. Japan has a baseball that when you take it out of the wrapper, in the box, brand new, you peel the plastic off, the baseball is ready to go. Do that.
Yep. I think you nailed it.
You own Rawlings.
Yeah.
You own the company that makes the Major League Baseball. Figure it out. That's where I'm at. It's so annoying.
Jerry Blevins, everybody. Jerry Blevins. I mean, no, you nailed it. The word you used that I think is summative of this entire situation is exhausting, because why are we in this predicament in the first place when the answer is larger than whatever was on Max Scherzer's hand? It's the baseball. It's the thing that he's trying to throw. On top of it all, I mean, you've mentioned before, Phil Cuzzy is the only guy to ever eject anybody with this new substance policy. He's done it 3 times. No one else has ever done it. And Max Scherzer, I mean, he's a guy that is kind of a face of the MLBPA and was in those rooms battling over these rules. And he said in a quote after the game, I knew I was going to get checked in the 4th. I have to be an absolute idiot to try to do anything when I'm coming back out for the 4th. And I believe him. He would be an absolute idiot to try anything. But like you said at the top of this kind of spiel, he's going to get the suspension. There's kind of no workaround. In fact, John Harper, who does some work for SNY, kind of confirmed that notion that the Mets are going to be without him for these next 10 games, most likely, even if he does appeal. It's a huge mess. And I mean, we saw last week or last weekend with Domingo Herman, who kind of had the exact same scenario, using a rosin bag in the dugout that he wasn't supposed to be using. He got a couple warnings. I think the umpires were kind of afraid to pull the trigger or whatever the situation was. And Domingo went out there and twirled the best start he's had in 2 years. And I don't think that's a coincidence. I think he was, having some fun with the sunscreen and rosin. So there needs to be no ambiguity with the rule. And when the rule itself is you're determining the stickiness of someone's hand, there's literal ambiguity in the wording of the rule. There needs to be some kind of line or some kind of stipulation that defines what cheating and what isn't cheating on a baseball mound. But right now, that doesn't exist, and that's exactly what you get when that happens.
You said two really good things that I wanted to touch upon. Number one being that Max Scherzer is not friendly with the MLB commissioner's office. He is on the executive subcommittee for the Players Association, meaning he is one of 8 players that stands and sits at the table across from the ownership in all of these negotiations. And Scherzer is very smart, very outspoken, and not afraid to speak his mind about a lot of the things that they propose that he doesn't agree with. So it feels targeted. And I'm not one to just throw into conspiracy theories, but it feels targeted. It feels like I'm sick of this guy. Let's get our enforcer out there, and maybe they come after Scherzer because it's so open for interpretation. There's too much gray area for all of it. And the fact that another thing that really bothered me was that the umpires came out with statements after the game.
Yeah.
Saying it was so sticky that our hands were sticking.
I have the quote right here. It's from Dan Bellino, who, if you need to put a face to the name, this is the guy that stood and stared at Madison Bumgarner, waiting for him to stare back, and then tossed him once he did. Dan Bellino said his hand was so sticky that when we touched his hand, our fingers were sticking to his hand, and whatever was on there remained on our fingers afterwards for a couple of innings.
Again, could be complete truth, or it could be complete and utter made up bullshit, because we don't know.
Yeah.
We don't know. How do you another guy said it was supposedly the stickiest thing that they felt in the 3 years since they've been testing.
Stickier than spider tack?
That's what I'm saying. Spider tack is one of the stickiest things. Sunscreen and rosin, if you do it to an illegal level, it's impossible to get off and hide it. And for Scherzer to go out in that 4th inning with that type of level of stickiness would be insane. And he is not an idiot. I think it's been pretty proven that anybody that's talked to him, seen him play, listened to him speak, Scherzer is not an imbecile. And that you would take an imbecile to go out there and try to cheat in that instance. It's beyond my understanding to think that Scherzer would do that, and that's what they're stating.
Yep.
Now, if he had sunscreen and rosin, or even if it was just sweat and rosin, which is what Scherzer is saying, it can be sticky. But how are you able to judge? Is there okay, this feels like this, let me check this is on this page is a 7 on 10. There's nothing like that. There's no litmus test. It's just a wide open, ambiguous, this umpire thinks it's this umpire thinks it's that. And this is what we said. And that is where I'm angry. Scott Boras is angry. Tony Clark, I guarantee you, is angry. And Max Scherzer, rightfully so, should be angry. And Mets fans should be angry.
Yeah. No, I think that's pretty much everything you can say about it, honestly.
I agree. I'm so exhausted from talking about it. It's the silliest thing, and it's all could be done if you fix the baseball. We wouldn't be talking about it. Again, I have never had an issue with a baseball my entire life. I've played in snow. It's cold in Ohio. It's hot as hell in the summer in Ohio. I've traveled around. I played in the desert. I played in all over the country in the minor leagues coming up. The first time I touched a big league baseball, it was like I'd never touched a baseball before in my life.
Yeah.
Trying to throw it as hard as you can, which we do, with no idea how to grip it. How is the, can you imagine if the basketballs in the NBA were all different?
Yep.
If they're like, all right, we have to rub this up with this dirt from mud from somewhere, and a guy, five guys in every team gets to rub it up differently. Like they finally got the humidor thing, right? But like,
Yeah.
let's just make a baseball that comes out of the package ready to go. We don't need a certain mud to be rubbed on it. We don't need any of that bullshit. You want the offense to come back? It's more exciting. White baseball right out of the package is much easier to see than when you rub it up with dirt and it becomes dark and you can't see the seams as easy. It's the solution is fix your own stuff and stop trying to put it on the player who's allowed to fix your problem, but not to fix, but also not fix. Again, all the extra sticky stuff, I think is cheating. I
Yeah.
really do. I hated it in the game. I'm glad it's been addressed, but I was going to say ticky tack, but this is exhausting and
Yeah.
it's bullshit because who gets to decide? Well, an umpire who's had a bad day, maybe he got, it was tax day not too long ago. Maybe
Yeah.
he was like, he's mad about that. And then all of a sudden he takes it out on Scherzer because he's mad. Scherzer has $43 million in the bank. And he's sad that he only has one color eye. And he's mad at Max Scherzer. Dan Bellino, when his Madison Bumgarner interaction is one of the most disgusting, disturbing things I've ever seen. He's still out there doing it.
Yep.
He wanted, like, if we could, like, this guy is just waiting to throw somebody out. You're telling me you believe his thought process? Shut up.
Yep. And that's
Like,
another thing, like no repercussions for any of these things because
there's
we've
nothing.
never had repercussions before. So why would it start now? Yeah.
I just saw, by the way, popped up on while I'm talking.
Bumgarner got DFA'd. Yeah, as we were talking about.
As we were saying it, that's wild. He got
That's
DFA'd.
crazy.
That's
I think we
crazy.
summoned it. I think we summoned it.
He might be coming to Queens. Who knows?
I was gonna say, so speaking of starting pitching help, because Madison Bumgarner is available now, Max Scherzer's gone likely for the next 10 games, and that includes that first Brave series of the year to close out April, so that's nice.
I'll be interested to see when he decides to take
Yeah.
it because he can challenge it. He's going to challenge it, so he
Yeah.
might make that start. Who knows? We don't know.
But I believe if he appeals and loses, the Mets can't replace him, right? I think that's
I
the
don't know about
penalty.
that.
I think if Scherzer appeals and loses, they can't replace him on the roster for 10 games.
Is that real? That seems petty. Like you're not allowed to
I think
have
it's the
your
penalty.
own. There's a penalty for fighting for your rights, like to have due process. That's
I mean,
silly.
we're talking about the
Again,
MLB.
that's bizarre.
Yeah. Well, outside of that, Carlos Carrasco also on the IL, and bad news there. His bone spur has resurfaced. That's the same thing he got surgery for a year and a half ago. So it's either going to be a shot and he'll be okay and able to throw again, or possibly another surgery. So the Mets have a ton of questions to answer with the starting rotation that has not looked good so far. They've been outside of the top 10 in the National League in pretty much every feasible category. And now they're going to be without the head of the staff for at least the next week and a half, maybe more. And Justin Verlander, who we thought was going to be end of April return, looks like it's going to be a May return for him. So the Mets have a challenging slate coming up with not their 100% staff.
Yeah, this is again. These are you get a couple of thoughts with this. So a team that's built on the success of their starting pitching has been the backbone of their desire to win a World Series. It's built on the starting rotation. They haven't had it at all this season, and they're kicking butt still. So there is hope. Again, you're going to need something. You're going to need some guys. If you want to win in October, you're going to need the same team that you thought philosophically is going to be good. But this team has impressed me. There's more pressure on Senga. There's more pressure on Peterson and McGill. We're probably going to see some Joey Lucchesi, who's been solid and who's a dog.
A
I think I'm a
dog.
dog.
I'm a dog.
I love that. I love his post game this spring.
Probably more of the butt too.
That's right, Jose Budo. The butt's coming in.
Hell yeah.
Does
So the Mets
if
have
his
depth.
walkout song is it doing the butt?
What about I like
We're
big
met.
butts?
That could be a good one too.
Come on. And then who let the dogs out for Joey? Throw it back to 2000? Come on. Let's go.
Some Baja Men shout out. Yeah, so they're going to be. It's just an interesting run. Again, we've
Yeah.
been even with just Quintana and and Verlander down, we've been trying to tread water. Like that was the thought process of the Mets was if you can just maintain and not get too far behind, and when you get your top starters back and you're ready, if it's the gap's not that far to run. Again, this is a Braves team that have won 45,000 games in a row again.
Yeah. That's the
They've been
exact
playing,
number.
but the Mets are sticking with them. Like they're
Yeah,
hanging in.
totally. No, I definitely agree. And I mean, like
So
the Mets had tough teams to face. Like I think everyone's kind of scoffing at the Marlins, but the Marlins are 8-3 against teams that aren't the Mets. Like they've been playing good baseball. Then you had the Dodgers in there. You have the Giants coming up next. Like it hasn't been an easy slate for the Mets, and they're still making it work.
yeah, they're showing some grit. The grit, team grit.
Not the grip, not the grip. We don't want that. Too
Yeah,
much
you
grip.
get tossed. You're about to get
I'll get tossed out of this podcast.
a 10 pod suspension. Just me and Audio Jack.
Just you chilling, talking to yourself. Stuff. All right, let's turn it back over to the positive. Let's do the apple of our eye, because we should do some shout outs for some great performances.
I'll let you do the shout outs because
Okay.
to me it's a
It's a
two-horse
two-horse
here,
race. It's definitely a two-horse race, which has kind of been a theme like the entire season.
which makes our job easier.
It does. Mark Canha went 3 for 9 this series, a run, a double, 2 RBI, a walk, and how about a stolen base for Mark Canha? He
Love
came
that.
in that last game to fill in for Marte, who is probably day to day. Hopefully, will be in the lineup tonight. And he
His
got a
neck, by the
huge
way,
hit. It's his
it was
neck.
a little
Yeah,
scary. So
I think
it
it's from
seems
that
like
Marlins stolen base, right? That's what he said in his
I,
post game.
mhm.
Yeah. All
So
right.
it's just a little stiff. And when you're running with a stiff neck, like it jars, and
Yeah.
it's just that was one of my consistent injuries. I got all this neck, and I had to get a cortisone shot in at one time. It's like something that's just so nagging. So it's
Yeah.
nice to give him some rest, let it heal up, and then it won't be there. So it's
Yeah. I mean,
usually a couple days.
that's another thing. The Mets position players have been really healthy so far, so we can afford to have Marte take a day or two. Outside of that, Jeff McNeil, 4 for 11, a run, 2 doubles, an RBI, and a walk after kind of a really bad Oakland series for him. The walks stay up. That's kind of been a theme for him all year. But it comes down to two pieces here, and those two pieces are the Mets bullpen, who had to carry a lot of weight this series yet again, and then Brandon Nimmo, the star of the finale win in that series. I'm going to let you pick first, and I think I know who you're going for.
I'm going for the Mets bullpen.
Mm-hmm.
They are the apple
Mm-hmm.
of my eye. It's simple, man. It was another series, and you had a great tweet, and I shouted you out on SNY. It's
No big deal.
the contributions from their starters in the LA series. Okay, all 3 games, 14 innings pitched, 9 earned runs, 6 walks, 5 homers allowed.
Yeah.
That is not a recipe for taking 2 out of 3 on the road against a World Series caliber team. That is what you got. And the bullpen decided that they wanted to flip the script on that. They went 12 innings pitched, 5 earned runs, gave up only 7 hits, 3 walks, had 16 strikeouts. So they were dominant when they needed to be. They had big contributions from guys from Jeff Brigham and Yacobonis to Robertson and Ottavino and Drew Smith and Brooks Raley, like just Reyes, like just the guys that they needed. They all stepped up and did their part. They look like they know what they're doing. They've been put out there an awful lot, and this was a big series for them to take a good team and show what they got because you needed, just as much as the offense needs the bottom half of that order to start producing, the back half of that bullpen, not the top guys, not the high leverage guys. These are the kinds of things that when 101 ball games or when the top, all of your bullpen guys can contribute to a winning cause. So
Yeah.
the bullpen for that reason is the apple of my eye.
Love it. Yeah, I mean, there's two ways you can spin it. You can say our starting rotation is a problem or our bullpen is a pleasant surprise. And I kind of both of them are true right now. They're top 10 in ERA and innings pitched, and they're without Edwin Diaz, the head of the Dragons. So, I mean, it's been really impressive so far. Specifically, Drew Smith has been great. Our guy, his last 5 games, 4 2/3 innings, no hits, 3 walks, 8 punch outs, and some pretty high leverage spots, including a big inning in the last game there. He's been great, man. And, we kind of talked about he needs to take on a larger role without Diaz this year, kind of as, one of the 3 guys at the back end that Rayleigh will toss it to. And he's been great. So I think he's probably going to get more responsibility too. And hopefully it goes better than last year because I think Drew Smith can really take a step up this year. But my apple is going to go to Brandon Nimmo because we got to give one to Brandon Nimmo. Come on.
He has to every time.
I mean, he is currently the second most valuable player in baseball. It's really fun to say that because after one player has a hot series, they just jump to the top of like the WAR leaderboard. It's like, oh, well, this guy's like the second best player in baseball now. He went 8 for 14, 3 runs, a double, a homer, and 2 RBI, including a 5-hit game in the last game of this series. He's one of 4 Mets all time with 2 or more 5-hit games, joining some no-name schmoes like Keith Hernandez, Mike Piazza, and Rusty Staub. In his last 7 games, including that afternoon, he's 16 for 41, 5 extra base hits, 7 RBI. He has been swinging a great bat, batting over 350. We haven't seen crazy slugging numbers for him so far, but honestly, he's got that OBP up. He's still taking his walks, and he's choosing great pitches to hit. His Baseball Savant page, if you are into the red bubble thing, go check it out. It's a nice site right now, and he's been worth every penny of that new 8-year deal. He's the apple of my eye.
The guy is playing at an incredible level.
Yeah.
Offensively, we saw him defensively doing some great things. He's just in the zone right now, and it's a sustainable type of play. It's what he does. He's even in the beginning when he wasn't really hitting great, he was still taking great at bats, and his on base percentage this year is second in all of baseball at 481. Again,
wow.
It's early. It's 60 at bats into the season.
At 481.
481. He has 15 walks to 7 strikeouts, which is incredible. The guy is doing it on both sides. He is a lovely leadoff hitter, center fielder, just a special player. So a great pick, the obvious answer that's not the bullpen, well deserved.
Yeah. I mean, last year we saw Lindor and Alonso have special seasons, and I think we expect that out of them. Nimmo was great, but if he can go on to be elite, all-star caliber, top 3 center fielder in the game, that's going to go a long way for this Mets lineup. That, honestly looked much, much better this series, aside from the Kershaw game. So a lot to love there. And they should hit well again against an upcoming team that is actually slumping pretty hard right now, which is kind of shocking to me. Full of familiar faces as well. Jerry, who we playing next?
Well, they're going back up the Pacific Coast Highway. They're going back to the Bay. They will be staying in the same exact hotel that they stayed when they played Oakland. They are going against the San Francisco Giants with some very familiar faces on that offensive team. Guys like Michael Conforto, Wilmer Flores. You ever heard of him? The most clutch Met. Yeah, he's pretty dang good.
Slowest man in the game.
JD Davis. There's some games, some bangers on that team. But the matchups are sweet for this 4-game set. The number 1 guy, the Ghost Fork man, Kodai Senga, who's 2-0 with a 3.38 ERA. He'll be going against Sean Manaea, the lefty, the beautiful haired man, the friend of Jolly Olive.
Mm-hmm.
He's 0-0 with a 4.76 ERA. Francisco Lindor in his career against them, 4 for 12. Escobar, 4 for 9, both with homers. Senga coming off his worst start in Oakland, 4 2/3. He battled some elements, learned a lot from himself, learned how to navigate some of those issues. He went 4 2/3, gave up 7 hits, 4 walks, 2 homers, and 4 runs. I think he's looking for a bounce back. There's going to be some element issues, some weird bullpen issues in San Francisco. So I'd like to see him bounce back. That is game number 1. That brings us to game 2 and possible fill-in. We don't know who's going to be starting for the Mets, but we're going to go out on a limb and say It's Joey Lucchesi or Joey Fuego, the man himself, possibly making his debut for the Mets. He's been really, really good for the AAA team. Had a good spring training. I think he's ready. He'll be going to go up against Anthony DeSclafani, who's 1-0 with a 1.42 ERA, one of the best nicknames in baseball. He's called Disco. Francisco Lindor against Disco in his career, 5 for 18 with 3 homers. I think that's going to be a good matchup to watch. And again, this will be Joey Lucchesi's first start of the season. That is game 2 of the 4-game set. Game number 3 is David Peterson, who's 1-2 with a 6.1 ERA, going up against their ace, the newly extended Logan Webb, who's 0-4 with a 4.94 ERA. Mark Canha in his career against Logan Webb, 4 for 9 with 2 homers. Brandon Crawford is 1 for 2 with a homer against Peterson. That's game 3. Game 4, Tyler Big Drip McGill, who's 3-1 with a 3 ERA, going up against Ross Stripling, maybe, who's 0-1 with a 7.3 ERA. Lamont Wade Jr. and Mike Yastrzemski are both 3 for 6 with a homer against McGill, and Stripling takes Alex Wood's spot probably in the rotation. Again, not solidified, maybe, but this is an important 4-game set to wrap up this West Coast road trip and get the Mets back to Queens with a winning record.
Very nicely done, as always. Yeah, kind of a little bit of a guessing game with some of these probables, because the Mets have a lot in flux right now. Giants are a weird team, man. They've had a weird start to this season. They haven't had a horribly difficult schedule. They played the White Sox, the Royals, the Tigers, and the Miami Marlins, and they lost all of those series. They're 6-11 on the year right now, but their league average in OPS plus and ERA. So it's not like they're playing that poorly. They're just not getting wins when it counts. For the Mets, we think it's going to be Lucchesi, and I think if you can use your context clues there, because they can't call up Jose Budo, as Jerry politely informed me. Thank you very much, Jerry, unless somebody is injured, and they already filled Cookie's spot. Denny Reyes got sent down, and I think they're stretching him out as a potential starting option. That's what they said. So that kind of just leaves Lucchesi. It's not going to be Dylan Bundy, who hasn't looked good so far in AAA, and we could see the return of the Churve, which would be really nice because he's looked good so far. And then the rest of the rotation fills out as scheduled. It's going to be Peterson and McGill the last 2 games. They have a lot of responsibility on their plate now with the Scherzer news and the Cookie news. So hopefully we see some good starts out of them as well. This could be a series that the Mets win, but I think I'd be very happy with the series split here. You go home and you finish 7-3 on your West Coast road trip.
Yeah, I think we're looking for a split on the road in a 4-game set. You'd be happy with it. Again, this is an interesting team. You don't really know what you got with them. They can hit. They were going to see old familiar face Darren Ruff too. He's going to come up in a big spot. I promise you that.
I already know it. Yeah,
he's going to be a pinch hit against Brooks Raley or something like that, and we'll see. But
if that happens, I'm clipping this and I'm putting it out.
This is an interesting team who, the Giants won, what was 109 games or
107, 101,
107 games like 2 years ago. Had a rough year last year.
107.
But they've got some boppers on their team with Yastrzemski and Conforto, Flo, Joey Bart, their big prospect behind the plates, seems to finally start to figure it out offensively. But it's an interesting team. They have the Rogers twins on the same team, which is crazy. It's so damn cool. Like, that's amazing. We had twins in our conference in high school, and I always thought that would be amazing. One of them, they played 3 sports. One was a quarterback, one was a receiver, like watching them throw the ball to each other.
That's so cool.
It was so sick. And so him and his brother are both relief pitchers, get to hang out in the same bullpen together. Like, it's bananas.
Kind of wish one of them was a catcher, because the twins have that telepathic communication. They wouldn't even need pitch-com. They could just
switch gloves. But one of them's a righty submariner from like below the earth. The other one is a big lefty from over the top. So they bring it. But what a cool story.
Yeah, very, very cool. A lot of stories with the San Francisco Giants, including all those Mets that we mentioned. Some of them off to good starts. I mean, JD Davis has numbers that you love. Michael Conforto has a couple big hits so far this year, and Darren Ruff somehow is batting like 270, I think. So
yeah, 267. Yeah.
267. So the Mets will have that to worry about because if Mets fans know anything, it's bad juju when we face someone who used to wear the blue and orange. But hopefully it's not too bad.
Not too bad. I think it'll be okay. This is a good team playing a better team. I think the Mets are stacked up to win this series. What they're run well. It's a run organization that's headed in the right direction. So
Yeah.
um,
Also, Logan Webb 0-4 to start the year. I did not have that in my book. That's kind of
he's
crazy.
he's he had a weird down year last year with his slider and sinker, but he looks better than his numbers in a small sample size. High strikeouts. He just gave up some long balls. I think he's given up 5 home runs.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, he's got 28 strikeouts in 23 innings. So he's still capable of winning a Cy Young, to be honest. I think he's that good.
Yeah.
But, he's got some growing pains.
Definitely. And I said that I think I'd be happy with the split. Got a little heat on Twitter for that because everyone's thinking we should win every series now. It's hard to go on the road and win a 4-gamer, man. It's tough to take 3 or 4 no matter who you're playing. And I think if
Home
you
or
split,
away,
you're
but
happy with it, man. I think you are.
yeah. Again, this is a winnable series, but a split on the road, you've come back home, you've done well on the road trip, but yeah, I can understand. I think a split would be amazing.
Yeah. So the Mets look good outside of all their other circumstances, and hopefully they can wrap up the West Coast trip strong, come back home to play the Washington Nationals, where Jomboy Media is taking over Section 303 next Wednesday. What? Who said that? It was
What? That's
me. I said
amazing.
that. First JM Mets of the year, baby. Let's go Mets. I think that's all
Let's
we
go.
got. I think that's it.
All right. Yeah,
Good
let me
app.
we can do a reaction again once we figure all the stuff out.
Yeah,
But I'm just exhausted from the sticky substance. Like, come on, like figure
I'm
it
done
out
with it.
already.
Yeah.
I am so over it.
Hopefully we get some good news. But if not, we'll be fine. The Mets are a talented org. They got some
Yeah, and
depth.
if you're gonna give the old man a couple of days off, so be
Might
it.
need it, Buy us some October starts. Why not?
I hope those are chips he can cash in later.
All right, guys. We'll see you on Monday. Let's go Mets.
LFGM.